This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing good. I was sick for about 3 days. I got sick Thursday with a kind of a head cold, chest cold, or whatever. Watched all three of those A&M games from home. And, you know, I was able to keep up with it, but I wasn't feeling real good. But I was feeling better after they swept the Aggies. There's nothing better than the best thing for me that you can have is to make A&M think they're going to win a game and let them come just one step from winning, and then you pull it away from them because it happens to them all the time. I've been watching it my whole life, and it's the best thing there is. It's like, we're going to win this. No, you're not.
Well,
it was good.
It happened a couple of times in the series. I mean, A&M fights back from down 5-0 in game one, ties the game, only to see Jace Borfin hit a go-ahead home run of the eighth. Heck, A&M almost took the lead in the eighth inning of that game, if not for Hunter Grimes' throw to home plate, which might be the biggest play in the field by an Arkansas defender all year. And then, of course, Saturday's game was just like hold on to whatever you can to scratch and claw onto the wall, because I had no fingernails left. It was like skin on wall. But it was a great series. But yeah, I mean, there were a couple of really close ones there.
Well, and it's just, once again, the SEC is just nuts this year. Arkansas sweeps Tennessee. Next weekend, Tennessee bounces back, sweeps Vanderbilt, but Arkansas gets swept by Georgia. The next week after that, Arkansas sweeps A&M, but Georgia loses 2 or 3 to Ole Miss, which is the last place team in the West. And this week, Arkansas goes to Mississippi State, which just got swept by Tennessee. So, I mean, you just, week to week, game to game, series to series, you don't know what's going to happen. Teams have a hard time handling success, but I think a lot of it is, with a couple of exceptions, I'm not sure that there's a team lower down in either division that could win a series from LSU. But other than that, I think you could pick just about any team, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, somebody like, I think they're capable of stepping up and winning a series when you don't think they could. And I think it's because the league is balanced. There aren't bad teams in this league. And there's a big drop-off after the top 4. You know, you got Vanderbilt, LSU, South Carolina, Arkansas, and Florida. But then when you get past that, it drops off a little bit with Kentucky and Tennessee are 11 and 10 each. Arkansas and Florida, 14 and 7 each. But, you know, it drops off a little bit, but the teams at the bottom aren't terrible.
The return to small ball is really what stands out. Now, they got to find a way to, hold the pitching staff together while you're building Brady Tygart back, and I think sometime early this week there'll be more of an update on the condition of Dylan Carter's arm because he reported more soreness again. But what really stood out offensively was how, and about Dave, you've watched Dave Van Horn manage enough games to know that he's changed his total approach on how you manage a lineup and how you expect to score runs. This is a program in the last few years that really has relied on slugging the ball, home runs, and not put too many outs at risk. But I've been fascinated watching them change in the last 2 homestands. Tennessee, you won that series because you ran with reckless abandon and Tennessee couldn't hold runners. Not a lot of Arkansas teams in recent years have stolen 8 bases in a weekend. This year's team did. And then utilizing the bunts and getting leadoff guys on base, moving them around, moving the Aggies infielders around. You could tell how frustrated their fielders were. And it just shows, this team is going to get Josenberger and Wagner back. They're going to hit their home runs, but they can score, they can manufacture, and that makes them really tough.
Yeah, I remember DVH saying in that preseason presser they were going to play more small ball, and then I didn't see it. I'm thinking, what's he talking about? And then, like you say, all of a sudden, probably out of necessity, here it comes. And it turns out that Bolton, this guy that's batting well below 200 for most of the year, he's a totally different guy when you ask him to bunt. He said that. He said after that game 3, he said, that's what I do. That's my thing. And he's good at it. And he made a huge difference, and it also seemed to help his full swing because he ended up going, I think, 2 for 3 in that game, had maybe a couple RBIs, and scored a run. So, it's talked about it, I think, some last week. When you look at Arkansas statistically, you're going, seriously? How are they where they are right now? Because there's just nothing about this team that stands out statistically. But it's DVH's management. This guy, he's not coach of the year. Somebody's lost their mind, because this season could have gone south in a hurry, especially when the injuries started to mount. And it's not just the injuries. When you have McIntyre not what he was, when you have Zach Morris not what he was, you start having these issues. Stovall's not hitting well right now. So there are some things that have happened, but DVH he's just negotiated all this, and it's like running around barriers or jumping over hurdles. He's just making it happen.
Mike, I don't know if you got a chance to check out any of this NBA playoff. Speaking of, pulling the rug out, the Warriors go out there and Steph Curry drops 50 on the Kings in a Game 7 win. And then you got the Heat as an 8 seed having a chance, which I got the Celtics out of the East. I don't know who you have out of the East. That West, Mike, it's the Suns-Nuggets series. That could go either way. Lakers, Warriors, either one of those teams have enough in the tank to win one. I don't know. Who do you like, Mike?
Yeah, I don't know. Phil and I talked about this 2 or 3 weeks ago. When I get home at the end of the day, I'm so sports out of it that I don't watch much. And I know a guy that knows you really well, or he says he does, Marty Houston. He's been telling me for years, Matt's a basketball guy. He loves basketball. He played football, but basketball is his love. I don't know. You talk a lot of basketball. I'll know this. You know it, and I don't know squat about
All right, well,
NBA.
how about this question then? Because we've seen this now in both the NHL and the NBA, Matt. You had the best team in the Western Division. In the Eastern Division.
The Milwaukee Bucks.
Totally choke.
Mm-hmm.
And
an 8 seed Jimmy Butler, yeah.
The Bruins had the best regular season in the NHL's history, most wins ever. They just lost the 7th game to the last seeded team, the Florida Panthers. And why watch any regular season games, right? In either of these leagues, it's just you're going to set yourself up with all this home field advantage, home ice advantage, home court advantage, and it didn't matter for either of them.
Well, and you look at the Warriors and what Steve Kerr said. Yeah, you get a Game 7 tonight in the Rangers and the Devils, but Steve Kerr, he said that year that they broke the Michael Jordan, the Bulls win record, and then they didn't win it in the finals. It's like, you got to pace yourself a little bit. The regular season sports, you're exactly right. It's just about getting in the tournament and trying to get your matchup.
Mike, I kind of liken it to like you'd win 30 regular season games for a college basketball team and then run through your conference tournament only, to do what happened to Kentucky a couple of years ago.
Well, look, I'm a big believer in playoffs. I am. I don't care what you're talking about. But my big thing is I have hated since I was a little kid the way they do the playoffs in college football. I go back to the day when it was decided by a bunch of guys at UPI. Does UPI even exist? United Press
Barely.
International?
I think barely.
I don't even think it's a thing. If it is, and then AP, you got a bunch of media people voting, and that's your national championship. Come on. In high school, you got high school football. They go out there and have a real playoff. Everywhere I know, they have that, and you can't do that. So that they improved it finally. You got the Roy Kramer, and he comes up with the formula, and they have the 2 best teams that are picked by a committee play each other, so it's 1 and 2, and okay, but you're still voting. And then finally you get a 4-team playoff, and everybody's like, oh, we don't need more than that. I'm like, what are you talking about? I want 32 teams. They do it at the lower level. Why can't you do it at the Division I level? So now we get 12, and I like 12, but I'd rather have 16. I'd rather have 32 because, to me, the regular season, everybody says, well, the regular season doesn't mean anything. Well, I don't know. It gets you where you need to go. But I know that I played football for 4 years in high school, never once got to play one playoff game because only one team from a district in Texas went in those days. If you didn't win your district, you didn't go. and it was just like a kick in the gut. I wanted to be in the playoffs. Everybody should want to be in the playoffs. The playoffs are everything in any sport. So, yeah, the playoffs, that's what it's all about.
Man, I know I love the NBA playoffs and these like you were talking about, Mike. But yeah, all the sports. It wasn't baseball like that too, Phil. Major League Baseball. If you didn't win the pennant, if you didn't win your division, you weren't going. Yeah.
Years ago, it was. It was just like you do this whole season, and you'd be going, "What?" If you was a Red Sox fan like I was when you're a kid, they never did squat. The Yankees won every year, and you're like, "Oh man, this is terrible."
Well,
so. When
why,
people
Mike,
talk about the good old days, the good old days were sometimes the bad old days.
But, Mike, there is no pennant race anymore. They say the pennant race starts in September. No, there is no pennant race anymore because chances are if you finish in second place, you made the playoffs anyway. And, yeah, you want to win a division, and I get it. You get a bye if you have the best record in the league in baseball and all of that. But division championships just don't mean what they used to because – it used to mean if you didn't win your division, you didn't make the postseason. That's all you were trying to do. I don't think there are pennant races anymore.
Yeah, and you give maybe there was a tradition with that. But again, the more you can throw in there, the better. Because I will say this too, and people are saying when you get 12 teams in the college football playoff, it's not going to matter because the same one or two teams are going to win every year. I don't believe that. I've sat and watched my whole life. I've watched the NCAA basketball tournament and all the danged upsets, which you love it. I love the first round and the second round because of all the upsets. You're just sitting there waiting for them to happen. And so I think the same thing happens in football. Maybe not as many, but the more people you put into the playoffs, the more teams, the more unpredictability you got. I hate predictability. I want to see upsets. I love upsets. I love watching a game, even if I don't care about the two teams that are involved. If there's an underdog, I want that underdog to win. I just love pulling for an underdog.
What'd you think about where Ricky Stromberg and Drew Sanders went in the draft? I thought that was where I expected Ricky to be third rounder. I expected Sanders to be a second rounder, but I think both of them will get opportunities to play quickly. So I think Sanders first and foremost. What were your opinions of seeing where they went and who they went to?
Yeah, Sanders was a little low, but look, here's the deal with the draft. To me, the draft is not a lot different from recruiting, going from high school to college. It's a crapshoot. These guys sit around, they've got all their analysts and expert numbers and stuff. What I notice is every time you advance from one level to the next, you don't know what's going to happen to an athlete. I knew a kid, we played street football in my hometown until junior high. The best two street football players we had in my hometown were out of football in the 7th grade because they didn't make the transition. We had a great junior high quarterback that never made the transition to high school because he lost his job because he didn't make the transition. We had a great running back. Everybody thought he was going to go to college and be a stud, and he was gone after the first semester. You don't know when you make that jump from one, and it's definitely different from college to the NFL, for instance. So they can pick a guy. I mean, you think this guy's a stud, he's going to make it, then all of a sudden he doesn't. Some guy's an undrafted free agent, becomes a great player. All I know is if I'm a guy that wants to play in the NBA, what I'm trying to do is get that first contract after that second contract. If you can reach to your second contract, that's where you're going to make money, and that's where you got a chance of sticking in the NFL. Man, I mean, how many guys are out of the NFL after 2 or 3 years? It happens all the time. It's tough.
It is. I played 4. It's tough to. I mean, it's hard work.
And if you're a guy that can make it 10 years, what's the formula there? I'd like to know what the formula is. I don't think there is one. Well, I don't think you could even predict it.
You get 2 of the best quarterbacks in the history of the NFL. Peyton Manning drafted number 1 overall. Tom Brady, what was he drafted? 247 overall. So and Phil, you said this. It's a weird, inexact science. You probably said it in better words than I did, but it's just hard. You just don't know.
So I don't get too worked up about the draft because the draft is confusing to me anyway. It always has been. but recruiting is confusing. Look what we just saw with basketball. You have all these three guys, these 3 5-stars come in, and they were okay, but they weren't what the fans thought they were going to be. And now we got 2 more and maybe 3 next year. We'll see how it works out. But it's just when you go from one level to the next, nobody knows how you're going to transition.
Mike, we'll leave it there. Stay away from the pollen. That's what got me last week. So hope you're feeling better.
Yeah, I'm feeling better already, guys.
BetOnline.ag is your number one source for all your basketball info, stats, news, and scores. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest player reports for this year's pro basketball playoffs. BetOnline is always your sports information headquarters this season, as we have you covered for all your sports wagering needs. Basketball, MLB, NHL hockey, right down to UFC and boxing. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to get your betting info, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games you can play right from your home. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Be sure to use our promo code BELIEVE to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's BLEAV. BLEAV. Bet online, where the game starts.